Good day and welcome to SCO BRICS Insight, where we talk about the latest news, information and analysis on what's really going on in Russia and the BRICS. Now, my name is Rod Mackenzie. Today I want to talk about how it's become obvious that the special forces of certain Western governments are active in the sabotage of merchant vessels that transport goods such as oil and chemicals to and from Russia. Now, over the past year, there's been a number of mysterious incidents involving merchant ships that regularly call at Russian ports. Now, it's important to note that some incidents have resulted in the loss of ships and even threatened to cause mass casualties. Now, from these events, at least three conclusions can be drawn, and in some cases, it's necessary to consider the implications from a number of perspectives. Now, firstly, I'd like to draw your attention to the incident that occurred on July the 6th with the Eco-Wizard tanker in the Russian port of Ust Luga. Now, this tanker is employed for the transportation of chemical ammonia, and it was in the process of pumping ammonia into the tanks at the time of the incident. Now, according to the Leningrad region governor, Alexander Drozdenko, there was a leak of in the ammonia pipe, but because of the rainy weather and the appearance of this timely water curtain, that limited the possibility of the substance being dispersed into the atmosphere and allowed for its localization and a clean-up. Now, an investigation is underway into the causes of the incident, according to the head of the region. But according to reports in the media, including the Financial Times, it's alleged that the explosion occurred on the tanker. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important because ammonia is a highly toxic substance. The chemical ammonia has a detrimental effect on the respiratory system, the mucous membranes of the eyes and the skin. And this exposure can result in blindness and, in many cases, fatalities. So an explosion in an ammonia tanker during the supply of ammonia is a potential terrorist threat. And this sort of incident could result in hundreds of victims and dozens of fatalities. Now, before I continue, I would like to make an appeal. If you like and enjoy my videos, you can help me fund the channel and my website, scobricsinsight.com, and further contribute to its development. Now, you can do this by making a small donation, which you can do by clicking on the thanks button at the bottom of the video screen, down on the bottom right hand side, sometimes behind three dots. So you click there, it's a sub-menu. Everybody donates gets a personal thank you from me. Now, this incident, however, is not the first incident of its kind, and there have been similar incidents, and not just on Russian territory. Now, let's look at some of the previous incidents. The first notable incident was the sinking of a Russian bulk carrier in the Mediterranean Sea south of Cartagena on December the 23rd, 2024. Now, the suspected cause was not one but three explosions in or near the engine room. Then in late January 2025, the tanker Sea Charm was damaged by an explosion that took place while it was sailing in the Mediterranean Sea. Now, the owner, Maris, had previously transported Russian oil on three occasions in 2024. Then on 9th of February, there was a fuel oil leak from the tanker Koala, which is flagged as an Antigua and Barbuda ship in the seaport of Ust Luga. Now, the ship had originated in the Mediterranean and had called in at a port in Malta. Now, this cause was classified as a man-made incident, in other words, sabotage. Then on the 15th of February, an explosion occurred on the Greek tanker Jewel, also under the flag of Malta and owned by the same Maris company in the port of Savona Valdo in northern Italy. Then a few days later, the chemical tanker Grace Fergan, flagged in Liberia, operated by the Cypriot Samar, was damaged off the coast of Libya. Now, the vessel departed from the port of Ust Luga in the Leningrad region on the 12th of January, then called into Malta. Then, of course, on the 26th of March, there was an explosion and subsequent fire on the Russian refrigerated vessel Crystalasia near the port of Gangshaw in South Korea, which caused the death of one crew member and serious injuries to several others. Now, in March, the maritime security firm Ambri released a report on the attacks on tankers. The company estimated at least 4 tankers and 1 bulk carrier had been damaged by explosion, and these indicated sea mines or limpet mines attached to the ships. The mines are being placed by divers on the routes to and from the ports, or actually in the ports, and slowed down when they're moored or were drifting. Now, on June the 30th, there was a major explosion on the TMS tanker Villamura in the Mediterranean off the coast of Libya. Now, this vessel regularly calls at Russian ports such as Ust Luga and Novosibirsk. Now, the FT is reporting that these incidents may be related to the Ukrainian Special Forces. Now, the FT, as usual, is being disingenuous, as the Ukrainian Special Forces are about as dangerous as the Girl Guides, and any exploits attributed to them is invariably down to the British Special Forces, who are very active in the Ukraine and abroad, and indeed a number have been killed in the Ukraine, but of course the UK government never admits it. They were the ones behind the sea drone attacks on the Crimea Bridge, and are unsuccessfully trying to train the UK's in covert warfare. In any event, the FT's analysts have concluded that this was the work of state actors rather than terrorist groups, just like the Nord Stream's example, when they could not have been blown up by amateur divers in a small sailing yacht as been suggested by the US government. And it was obviously the state actors of the US, UK and Norwegian using their specialist knowledge of underwater sabotage. So in essence, we're dealing with an attempt by a certain state, the UK, or a group of states to limit Russia's foreign trade by the use of sabotage. Now, the use of sabotage war is unlikely to have a significant economic effect in the near future, but there is a risk of causing catastrophes with mass fatalities. Now, the incident aboard the Eco Wizard in Ust Luga serves as a classic and cautionary example. It's evident from the manner in which the sabotage is being carried out that the enemy are trying to avoid casualties, but it seems unconcerned if they do. Now, Russia has not yet issued an official statement regarding the measures being taken to counteract this sort of sabotage. However, it's evident that there are measures in place. In May, the Finnish Ministry of Defence stated that tankers leaving Russian ports were now being escorted by Russian naval ships. And as recently as the end of June, Western analysts stated that 2 tankers considered part of the so-called shadow Russian fleet passed in through the English Channel in synchrony with the Russian Navy corvette, the Boyki. Now, this is challenging to intercept it as anything as an escort. It's reasonable to assume that the ships were travelling to or from Russia are subject to underwater inspections, and it's possible to draw at least 3 conclusions from the present situation. Firstly, it's evident that the Western sanctions and economic measures that they implemented to counteract the export of Russian oil product are not bringing the desired results. Everybody knows that Russia has successfully navigated the challenges posed by these sanctions and has implemented a complete restructuring of its seaborne oil exports. Consequently, the West and some countries are adopting measures to try and counter these attempts that Russia has. Secondly, the occurrence of sabotage, that is, covert attacks for which nobody takes responsibility, suggests that the West is reluctant to engage in open confrontation, so they're using covert operation. Those involved in such incidents tend to distance themselves from the situation, as open confrontation carries significant costs. And they know that Russia can slap them very hard, as they've done in the Ukraine to French mercenaries, for example. Now, the second undeclared sabotage war against Russian exports is a challenge that needs to be addressed. Now, a specific and effective response is required to prevent further attacks and maintain the current export revenue level. So it's imperative that the specific culprits are identified and are dealt with a commensurate level of retaliatory measures, then thoroughly as possible, and quite likely that this could be also achieved by covert measures. I mean, it's fortunate that Russia's among the states that have the capabilities for doing things in a covert manner. Anyway, Russia's not happy and it will take action. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. And if you enjoy the videos, make a donation at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.